In this lesson, we're going to look at making class components. We will accomplish this with Es6 Classes. Let's take a quick look at how the Mozilla Developer Network defines Es6 Classes. JavaScript classes introduced in ECMAScript 2015 are primarily syntactical sugar over JavaScript's existing prototype-based inheritance. The class syntax is not introducing a new object-oriented inheritance model to JavaScript. JavaScript classes provide a much simpler and clearer syntax to create objects and deal with inheritance. The good news is that at this point, you don't have to fully understand objects and inheritance to use classes in React to make components. In our previous lessons, we looked at how to create React components as stateless functional components. We talked about how, if at all possible, we want to use stateless functional components in most cases. So why would we ever create components with Es6 classes? Here are two general rules. The first, if your component needs to access the this keyword, use Es6 classes. The second rule, if your components need lifecycle methods, also use Es6 classes. In this lesson, we aren't going to use the this keyword or deal with any lifecycle methods. But we will learn the basic syntax to get started with class components, so when we need to rely upon them in the future, we'll be ready and have a frame of reference. Alright, let's head to our code. We'll begin by making a new file in our section 2 folder. We'll call this index2.html. We'll then recreate our developer environment. Starting with Emmet, we'll throw in our boilerplate code. After that, we'll go to our title tag, and we'll give this a title of class components. Now, we want to bring in our script tags for our React, React DOM, and Babel libraries. We can do that by going to a former file and copying those script tags. We'll then come back into our current file and paste them in. Alright, our metadata is all set. Now, let's head into the body of the file. We'll create a div tag, and we'll give it an ID of app where we want to render our React code. We'll also add the text as we have done before, React has not rendered yet. If we see that when we look at our page in the browser, it will mean that we have done something wrong. Alright, we've walked through this setup several times now. In future lessons, there will be minimal, further step-by-step explanation and more of an expectation that you know how to set this up on your own from now on. Our next step will be to create a script tag. We'll give it the attribute of type and set it to text/Babel. This will be so that it can read our JSX, but also now so it can read our Es6 class. Next, we'll set up our React DOM.render method, as we are already familiar with that. As always, it is going to look for two arguments, the what and also the where. The where is already established, so we'll go ahead and type in document.getElementById, and then we'll target the location of the div with the ID of app. Now, we're ready to create our first class component. As we do this, you don't have to have an expert knowledge of each piece that we are talking about, but you should focus on picking up the syntax needed to create a component with Es6 classes. We'll begin with the class keyword. Then, we will name our component. In this case, I'm going to name our component Shapes. Just like with the stateless functional components, we will capitalize the first letter in our component rather than camel case style. The next bit of syntax to memorize is extends react.component. This is just stating that this Es6 class will extend the react.component class from the React package. From there, we will use curly brackets and go into this code block. We will use our single render method. This component absolutely will not work if you do not provide this render method. Then, we'll open up another code block and we'll enter into that. We'll begin with a return statement. This will look very similar to the stateless functional component syntax from our previous lessons. Inside of the parentheses, we'll put our JSX in that we want to render to the DOM. We'll go ahead and create an h1 tag, and we'll render the text circle, square, and finally rectangle. Now, let's go to our React DOM.render method and feed this component to the first argument. Again, there is nothing new here to learn that is different from providing a stateless functional component as we learned earlier. We'll just type in the name of the component shapes as a closing tag. Now, let's preview our work in the browser and let's see what happens. Alright, success. Great job. We'll see you in the next lesson.